Hello, listeners and fellow book lovers. Welcome to The Book Snug, a bi-weekly conversational podcast about books and the reading life. My name is Stephany.
And my name is Julia.
We're a mother and a daughter who love reading and talking about books, the ones we adore and the ones we don't. We're delighted you're here, so grab your favorite hot drink or ice-cold beverage and settle in for another cozy bookish chat.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Julia.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you, too.
So this is such a cozy time of year, and it is so chilly today.
Very.
It is definitely frosty on the ground, which I love because it makes me think of snow.
Yeah.
Because it's chilly, are you drinking anything exciting or warm this morning?
I'm drinking something warm and Christmassy today.
Nice.
I'm drinking Harney and Sons holiday tea, which I
yum.
only really drink this time of year, so I have it almost every day.
Very fitting.
How about you?
I'm throwing it back to fall a little bit.
Okay.
I'm drinking a cinnamon apple tea from Lidl, so it's a store brand tea.
Still, if it's good.
It is.
And
It's
I
nice
think
and sweet.
cinnamon and apple still feels Christmassy too.
Yeah.
It's a flavor
It
and a
is.
scent that you even get at this time of year.
Yeah. Well, it is Christmas time, and I love this time of year because the lights are so pretty and the snow and the anticipation of Christmas. But we're still kind of early enough in December that we have the full holiday season to look forward to.
Yes.
So is there anything particular that you're looking forward to this year?
I really enjoy Christmas. I enjoy the decorating. I enjoy the shopping and wrapping gifts. I love to bake, so this is big cookie baking time for me. And most of all, I just enjoy being with friends and family and celebrating and enjoying a lighted Christmas tree and listening to Christmas carols. I guess I could go on and on. I just really enjoy Christmas overall. How about you?
Well, you said you guys are going to see Longwood Gardens and the Christmas lights there too.
Yes, we are. We're going there next week.
Which is always so magical.
Yes, beautiful. Longwood Gardens is a very well-known gardens in Pennsylvania. And every Christmas, they do a huge light display in their outside gardens. And then in the conservatory, they do several incredible installations. And it like you said, it is magical. And it definitely, if you're not in the Christmas spirit,
it'll get you there.
It will put you in the Christmas spirit. Yes. You can spend hours wandering around there.
Yeah.
What about you? What are you looking forward to this Christmas?
Yeah, kind of all of the same things. Growing up, I loved when the house was all decorated for Christmas and we would all gather around in the living room and just hang out in the evening.
With all the lights on. Yeah.
Obviously, that's a little bit different now that most of us are married and not living at home anymore. But this year, I was able to find some of my really fancy plates and dinnerware that we got way before we got married. So I pulled them up, and I already told Ben that we were going to have a very fancy Christmas dinner with candles on the table and using those fancy plates and everything before we go to a late night Christmas Eve service. So I'm just looking forward to that.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful.
Yeah, how pretty that'll be. But this season brings me so much joy, like childlike joy.
Yeah.
Fall brings me still joy. Christmas is the childlike wonder joy.
I'm going to ask for everyone's forgiveness before we really get started. I have a very croaky voice. I've been sick for the last 2 weeks, and this is the best I've sounded since this whole cold started. But I'm still struggling a little, so I apologize for the vocal fry and the croakiness.
Well, it definitely does sound so much better than the last time we tried.
Right.
Well, today's chapter is a focus on our cozy reading memories, and specifically the books that we like to read around Christmas time.
And even more specifically, picture books.
Yes. So we'll, at another time in the future, we'll talk about our chapter books or our longer form winter Christmas books.
Adult books.
Yes.
Yeah.
But this is, I think, more a callback to that childlike enjoyment of Christmas and just reflecting on those memories.
Yeah.
Because Christmas is such an ageless holiday that you don't have to be a certain age to have certain memories about it.
Yes.
Now, Christmas for us is a very religious experience. For Christmas, we read stories or meditate on the birth of Christ and his arrival and what that means. And so a lot of the books that we are going to talk about are going to be reflective of that. We do have some secular books in here because Christmas and the Grinch kind of go hand in hand. But as we get into those more nativity stories, it might be a little bit more rapid fire and definitely maybe a little bit more redundant, but all of these books are beautiful and unique in their own way.
Right.
This is quite a pile of books, though. So before we dive into it, do you have any memories of reading or books around Christmas time you want to share?
I do, actually. I think my very first reading memory ever that I have as a child is reading The Night Before Christmas. I was not probably even 3 yet. And I associate The Night Before Christmas and reading it with my sister coming home from the hospital, my younger sister being born, and her birthday is December 29th. And I'm thinking that maybe this book was a gift related to that. I don't know. That could be a complete fairy tale. But my mom must have read me this book several times because I remember looking at it myself and knowing the whole story. And at 3 years of age, I would not have read it myself yet.
Yeah.
But I just remember poring over the pictures and going over the words in my head about the tiny reindeer hooves on the roof and the dad opening the sash and looking out on the new fallen snow and the description of Santa Claus.
This is bowl full of jelly.
Yes, yeah. It was just so vivid, and I could, in my little brain, imagine it so well. That is definitely a memory that I have carried with me. Now, I had to check with my mom to make sure I had the facts straight, and she's pretty sure I do. So I feel pretty confident sharing that memory. I also have one other book memory of Christmas, and this one is a school-related memory. One of my teachers, and I can't remember if it was a 4th grade or a 3rd grade or a 5th grade teacher, read us The Best Christmas Pageant Ever by Barbara Robinson. And if you are not familiar with this book, it is a hilarious chapter book related to Christmas. It's about a family of delinquents called the Herdmans. They lie and steal. They smoke cigars.
Hit the other kids.
Yeah. Even the girls smoke cigars.
Yeah.
They curse and swear. And at the very beginning of the book, they try to burn down a neighbor's tool
Barn
shed.
Or something. Yeah.
And this family somehow gets involved in the local Christmas pageant at one of the churches in town. And the story goes from there. And it is a crazy Christmas pageant.
Yeah. Pretty rambunctious.
Yes. But it ends up just being a very heartwarming story. And I loved it so much that when you and Mark and Aaron and my sons were old enough to enjoy it, I couldn't wait to share it with you. So we read it numerous times at bedtime during the Christmas season when you were growing up.
Yeah. This is one of those books that I read every year whenever I come to visit at Christmas time. There is the ending of the book always makes me a little misty-eyed.
Yes.
There's a lovely little scene where Imogen, who is one of the older Herdman girls, is Mary, and she's on stage holding baby Jesus. And there's this moment where she gets it. And this comes maybe 2 pages after she's found in the girls' room smoking up a storm and cursing. And but it's just that kind of wraparound of how lovely it is.
The juxtaposition of the badness and the goodness, which is really what we're all about and why we have Christmas, why we celebrate Christmas.
Yeah.
I just remember 2 of the brothers bringing a ham as their gift as the wise men to baby Jesus. Yeah.
They just didn't get it. Yeah.
So those are 2 of my memories. Yeah. And I also just loved reading Christmas books to you guys when you were little. That was just a special, special pleasure for me.
Yeah.
So how about you? Or do you have any Christmas memories, I guess I should ask?
I do. And I think my memories might be more atmospheric or I don't have any specific book memories. The first one that I want to share, it was kind of a tradition, maybe a routine thing as we were growing up that at bedtime, you or Dad even would read us a book in the hallway. We would all be in our beds, and from the hallway, using the nightlight in the hall, you'd read to us. And at Christmas time, that didn't change. In our hallway, also, that's where we put our kid tree. So this was the colorful tree that had ornaments that we made in school or had our names on it, or were more whimsical. Fun. Yeah. Whereas our nice tree was downstairs. The way that my bed was set up in my bedroom, my bed was perpendicular to this hallway. So I could lay in my bed and look out my door and see the pretty colorful lights of this Christmas tree and it was mostly you, would read us. And I think that that's how we read Best Christmas Pageant Ever.
I'm pretty sure that is,
yeah.
Yes.
So I just have really, really joyful memories of laying in bed, seeing those lights and listening to Christmas stories. And it was probably also snowing, too, because we got a lot more snow when I was growing up. The next memory I want to share is kind of more of an active memory. This is something that we're still very much doing every year. But for us, on Christmas morning, we don't get Christmas morning started. And I mean our family, not my husband and I, our family. We never got Christmas morning started, until you guys were downstairs and ready to go. But then until we had the chance to do our final Advent and read the Christmas story out of, and it was mostly Luke we read out of.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And then took time to pray together as a family before we began the morning. And we took turns reading it. So I have definitely read it. I know Mark and Aaron have read it. I know Dad has almost always read it. I think you read it once or twice, but you're the paparazzi on Christmas.
Right,
so.
I take all the photos.
Yeah. But I just have really fond memories of pulling you guys out of bed at the crack of dawn, coming down the steps to see everything lit up with the candles and the pretty lights and everything, getting really comfortable and cozy on the couch to settle in, to hear the story, to reflect on it, to then pray, and then to slowly and intentionally begin Christmas morning. And that's something that we still very much do now when we do Christmas as a family.
Right, when we get together, even though you guys are all adults and most of you are married.
Yeah. So that one's a really important memory.
Yeah, it's a lovely memory.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's part of our family heritage and tradition.
Yes. Me too.
Lots of good memories.
Yeah. Yes. And I know that there's definitely more if I were to sit and think about it, but those are the two that came to my mind first. Yeah. To start off this pile of books we have, we're going to get into our nativity stories. And again, these might seem kind of redundant, but we enjoy them because of the perspective they take or the illustrations. So I'm going to start us off here. This one is The Last Straw by Frederick H. Thury, and it's illustrated by Vlasta van Kampen. This is one that is like deep grained into my memory of Christmas time. It's the story of Hashmakaka, a camel who is with the wise men. He's old, he's ready to be done, but he hears the voice of God telling him he's going to go on one last journey. And this is his journey with the wise men through to Bethlehem, and how being obedient to that call leads him to the manger where Jesus is. I've always liked this story because, Hashmakaka was really fun to hear read to us growing up.
Yeah, I always used to think you picked the book just to hear me say Hashmakaka 50 times. Yeah.
But the illustrations are beautiful.
Yes.
It is rich and very detailed, but I think I always really enjoyed seeing the different gifts that were brought to this caravan of the wise men to bring to baby Jesus. So there's gold and food and fabric and birds and animals. And it just, this pile on Hashmakaka's back just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think that I just found a humor in that growing up. But I loved looking at the pictures.
And the fact that Hashmakaka is so crotchety.
Oh, so crotchety. My gout, my sciatica.
He doesn't want to be there, but in the end, he's very grateful that he made the journey.
Yeah. Yep. So this is one of my favorites.
That's a great book.
Yeah.
The first book I'm bringing to the show is called The Friendly Beasts. It's illustrated by John J. Blumen, and the story, quote unquote, is adapted by Karen L. Blumen. And this is basically just an illustrated version of the carol, The Friendly Beasts. And the reason that I picked this out is because the illustrations are just so charming and whimsical. The animals are so excited about seeing Jesus. And John Blumen just did a great job of showing the wonder and just the incredible excitement of meeting Jesus. It really is just the carol. There's no story to it. It's just the words. And at the back of the book, there's the sheet music. So you can play it and sing it while you look at the illustrations. Lots of fun. I know you guys like looking at the pictures too.
Yeah.
So.
I always, like, they're just warm. The contrast of the purples and the yellows and how everybody is just so invested in the situation.
Yes.
And I have never heard this carol other than you singing it or playing it. I've never heard it.
It's
in
not when you
life.
hear it on the radio or Spotify or Pandora.
No.
Yeah, it's just not a common carol anymore. I would say it was a song that back when Sunday schools did little Christmas presentations and pageants, this song was sung a lot, but you don't hear it nearly as much anymore.
No.
What's your next book?
Yes, the next one, and this is just the Nativity, illustrated by Julie Vivas. These are watercolor illustrations, which gives them so much life. But this is obviously the story of Mary and Joseph with the angel and going to Bethlehem.
Yeah.
It's
a straightforward nativity story. Yes.
The pictures are fabulously just amazing. The coloring is very soft, so it feels inviting and welcoming. But Mary just looks frantic and confused and overwhelmed.
She looks like a very pregnant person with slippers and her back hurts.
Yes, and her hair is always all over the place. And the angels in this story...
Don't they wear work boots?
They do.
Yeah.
And their wings always look a little fragile and haphazard. And it's just frantic and chaotic. But yet there's something so... I can't think of a good word. Because it's still very joyful and still very excited. But it's this like, wow, oh my gosh, what is happening? Right. Oh, this is so cool. Even though they all look...
It's gobsmacked. Gobsmacked and happy all at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah. They're humorous, but very sweet. Yeah. I found this one to be a really nice juxtaposition to some of the more serious illustrated nativity stories that we have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when I purchased that book, I had to look a little bit for it. So I'm not sure how available it is anymore. I didn't do any investigation into that. But I was just thinking that Mary and Joseph probably felt a little gobsmacked and incredibly blessed all at the same time. So
definitely.
Yeah, this is a great book for all of those feelings.
Yeah. Tons of fun too.
The next book I want to talk about is more of a little children's book. It's called Who is Coming to Our House by Joseph Slate and Ashley Wolf. The illustrations in this they look like lino cuts to me with some color added. And this is an anticipation of the birth of Jesus for the most part. It's the animals in the stable. Yeah. Getting ready for the coming of Mary and Joseph. And they're also very excited. They're working together to clean everything up and make a comfortable bed for Jesus. The illustrations are just gorgeous. I love this type of illustration. It's very graphic, lots of black outline with colors added. The animals are just so curious and welcoming. And the book does end with Mary and Joseph coming and the birth of Christ, but it is just a wonderful story to share with little kids in particular because of the animals and how engaging they are. I love this book. We have it in paperback, but it also comes in a board book form. So it is definitely for little people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always remember in that one watching the spider spin her webs and the cat make the bed warm and the sheep let go of their wool and how they each did their part to get ready. Yeah.
It's a very sweet book.
Yeah. This next one is it's one of my absolute favorites.
And it's quite a departure from the other ones that we've been talking about.
It is. It's titled Spirit Child, A Story of the Nativity. And it's translated from the Aztec by John Bierhorst, and the pictures are by Barbara Cooney. I don't know why I was drawn to this one growing up. I mean, the pictures are stunning.
Yeah, very colorful.
Yeah, very warm, definitely reflective of the Aztec tradition. But I think, and maybe I wasn't able to verbalize it growing up, but the fact of recognizing that the story was or is actively told all over the world in cultures that you tend not to really actively think about would have heard this story.
Right.
And as you're reading it, you become very aware that this was an oral tradition.
Yes.
That it was said out loud. At times it almost feels like there's a call and response back and forth.
And very much intimately related to the type of life that the people in the Aztec tradition would have lived.
Yeah. And the pictures, I mean, reflect that as well. Like Mary and Joseph walking through the desert instead of what that environment would have been.
Yeah.
Or picking corn instead of wheat or so the pictures are very reflective of this as well. The angels are wearing headdresses, much like would have been that cultural style.
The architecture.
Yeah.
Yes, everything.
Yeah. Very, very much enjoy this one.
It's a beautiful story to read and to look at.
Yeah.
The next book I want to talk about is called The First Night, and it is by B.G. Hennessy. The paintings for this story are by Steve Johnson and Lou Fancher. And the reason I'm picking this again is just because the illustrations are so beautiful. They're simple. I think, Julia, you mentioned that this book, the illustrations in this book remind you of the song Silent Night.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I would definitely agree. It is another nativity story. It focuses very much on the shepherds meeting Mary, Joseph, and baby Jesus in the stable. And it's also another very easy reading book. Simple words. It's almost written like a poem. And it's definitely for younger kids, but I still enjoy it, and I am very much an adult. It's a paperback, and it is a Picture Puffins book. I loved reading this book to you and your brothers when you were little. Very enjoyable, beautiful book.
Yeah. I love those illustrations. They're so soft and just inviting and warm.
Yeah. And pastels just have that soft but vibrant look to them.
Yeah.
What's your next book?
So my next one is, so it's The Story of Christmas by Helen Ward. Now, this one, I see this one and that Nativity with the Crazy Angels side by side. They're the perfect foil to each other because the Nativity with the angels feels very funny, very realistic,
very informal.
Yes. The illustrations in this one,
The Story of Christmas.
Yes. Remind me a lot of the altarpieces from the 1200s and the 1300s with the iconography and the detailed but two-dimensional people.
Yes. That you saw in the cathedrals in Italy.
Yes. So I studied in Italy for just a couple of weeks. But
summer.
Yeah. But while I was there, I got to visit the Uffizi Art Museum in Florence, and you had the art over there is incredible, but the altarpieces there are very old, but incredibly detailed and incredibly beautiful. And the art on that reminds me a lot of the pictures in this book.
Yes.
Yeah. This book starts with Zacharias and Elizabeth and how John the Baptist makes his way into the nativity story and why that's really important to this story. And then through to when it ends with the shepherds and the wise men coming. But the images are lush. They are decadent.
They're very rich.
Very, very detailed.
But stylized too. It's kind of an interesting combination.
Yeah. I always loved these images. I think here's another kind of maybe obscure reference for some people. We listened to the John Michael Talbot Birth of Jesus album during Christmas time. And these pictures remind me of that album as well. Like those two things go hand in hand for me, probably because of the time period they're trying to emulate.
Yes. Yeah, you can spend hours just looking at the illustrations.
Yeah.
And you could tell the whole story without looking at any of the words on the page, just by what's happening in the illustrations. They're just beautiful.
Yeah.
Your Aunt Karen did very well.
Yes.
When she chose those books to give to you guys.
Yes. Yeah. And this is very much her style, so I'm not surprised to hear that it was a gift.
The last spiritual book that we're going to talk about is The Crippled Lamb by Max Lucado with Jen, Andrea, and Sarah Lucado, and it's illustrated by Liz Bonham. This is another nativity story, but it focuses on a little lamb who has a crippled leg, and he is not able to keep up with the other lambs and sheep in the flock. I think his name is
Joshua, yeah.
Yeah. So he has to stay back in the stable, and he stays with his friend who is a cow, and he's very sad about this. But because he had to stay back at the stable, he was one of the first animals to greet Jesus when he was born. So it's a very, very sweet story, regardless. But in our family, it has an extra special meaning because we see the crippled lamb as representing a member of our family who was born with a lot of physical limitations, my niece Molly. And she was often limited in what she could participate in. Now, that doesn't mean that she did not do a ton of stuff with us. I mean, she drug us all over Walt Disney World one trip. I think we were more tired than she was, so it was all said and done. But when we read this story, it's pretty much dedicated to Molly because she did pass away. And so she is the first of us to meet Jesus. So whenever we read this, not only are we celebrating the birth of Christ, but we are reading it in memory of somebody who was very near and dear to us. So that is The Crippled Lamb by Max Lucado. And again, the illustrations in this are lovely. And the story is beautiful. If you're familiar with Max Lucado at all, you know that he can put words together very nicely and make a lovely, moving story. So I highly recommend this book with the understanding that it has extra special meaning to our family.
Yeah. Okay, so those were our religious nativity books.
Yes.
At the end of this pile, we have our secular ones. So there's going to be lots of stories that you probably recognize in here, dear listener. The first one that we have on this pile is The Runaway Christmas Toy by Linda Hayward, and it's illustrated by Loretta Krupinski. Now, this one I'm pretty sure is as old as I am in our collection.
It's even older.
Well, yeah.
I think it was originally published in 1988.
Yeah. So this is probably one of, if I really thought about it, my first Christmas book memory, but that takes a lot of energy to think that far back sometimes.
Wow, I'm in trouble.
No, I just meant if it's not already coming to my mind, then I have to really dig for it. So this is, it's a picture book with onomatopoeias. It's perfect for little kids or young readers. It's the story of a little train that is so excited for Santa to drop him off on Christmas Eve that he kind of runs throughout the factory and causes a little bit of chaos along the way.
Makes lots of noises.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Ding, ding, and jingle, jingle, and
floop, floop.
Floop, floop. I remember these pictures. Probably more so than the actual story, because I remember how jolly Santa looks and the coloring of the other toys.
Right. And just being in Santa's workshop.
Yeah. The version that we have is cut out like a little train. But you can still find it on Amazon. We did check. But some of the other versions of this story, obviously there's an updated cover.
It's just a square book.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to talk about another older book called Claude the Dog, A Christmas Story. And words and pictures are by Dick Gackenbach. This is about a little basset hound who is very much loved by his family and given a ton of great gifts for Christmas. And he takes all his gifts outside and is showing them to his friend Bummer, who is a stray dog. And he looks like a stray mutt. He's kind of rough looking. And as Clyde is sharing and talking about all his gifts, Bummer is all excited about all these wonderful things. And Clyde realizes that Bummer didn't get anything for Christmas. So what he does is he gives Bummer all of his gifts. And realizes that the best gift that he has is his family and the love of his person. So every time I read this story, it makes me tear up. It's just a wonderful, wonderful story. And it really celebrates the meaning of Christmas without talking about the Nativity. This book, I know, is loved by Mark because as an adult and married, he called me up and wanted to talk about it last year. So that's Clyde the dog, A Christmas Story. Very, very cute.
Yeah. That book, I don't remember when we got it in our Christmas book reading, but I definitely remember the first time I read it, it made me feel all kinds of emotions that I didn't know how to name, and it hurt. And I was like, I'm not reading that book ever. So maybe that was my first signal ever that I was an empath. I don't know, or a highly sensitive person.
It's a poignant book.
It is.
Yes.
It is. It hurts to read for some of us. But it is a beautiful,
it's a very sweet story. And very quick. It's not very long.
Yeah. So the torture doesn't last very long. The next one is a good old favorite. It's How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss.
Yes.
And for those of you who maybe you're just not hearing the story for the first time or whatever, the Grinch is a miserly old
crotchety
something
monster.
Yeah.
Is he a monster? He's a Grinch.
Yeah.
I don't know what you call him.
Right.
He's a Dr. Seuss creation.
Right. So, right. But he just doesn't like Christmas, and the little Who's in Whoville who live right outside of his cave celebrated. And so this year he's decided he's going to steal Christmas from them. And so it's the story of that little adventure with his ever faithful dog Max.
Yeah.
And then what it means at the end when he realizes that the Who's don't need all that stuff to celebrate Christmas. For me, I don't know if the book itself or the actual story is what I remember from Christmas, but
or the movie.
Right.
Like the original
cartoon
movie.
Yes. But I mean, as I said at the beginning, Grinch is Christmas. Like, I will watch the movie sometime this year. I will read the book, or I'll listen to the song, or whatever. And this particular book has Dr. Seuss's very signature characters in it. And it's a for the Grinch, it's a heartwarming story.
It is. So, his heart grows three times
after it shrunk 3 times. Oh yeah.
We fell in love with the newest Grinch movie
with Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yes. That is just such a sweet movie. They took liberties with the story, but it's beautifully illustrated and animated. CGI. The CGI is just gorgeous. And the story is so very sweet. Yeah.
No, that one is a ton of fun. What's the next one here?
The next book is Who's That Knocking on Christmas Eve by Jan Brett. And if you are familiar with Jan Brett, she does a lot of Scandinavian style book illustrations with stories that often involve animals in some form or another. And this one has a polar bear in it who is a side character. He's not a main character, but he plays a major role in the climax of the story. Who's That Knocking on Christmas Eve is about a girl who lives in Norway, and she is alone on Christmas Eve. Her father has to go out for something. I forget what. And she is left at home to continue the preparations for Christmas dinner. She's doing a lot of baking, and it smells really good. And it draws in some trolls, and they kind of come in and take over the house. And the story is all about their orneriness, and then how she, with the help of a friend, eventually gets rid of the trolls.
Yeah.
The illustrations are just
fabulous.
Yeah, they are so quirky and cute. My youngest son, Aaron, loved this book for a year of his life. We read it every day, even outside of Christmas. We read this book because he liked it so much. But it is a ton of fun. And we always thought it was so funny that the trolls called the polar bear Kitty. So that's Who's That Knocking on Christmas Eve by Jan Brett. She actually does a lot of Christmas book or wintry book type short stories that are just a pleasure to read.
Yeah. And you just picked up her version of the Nutcracker.
I did.
Yeah.
I found that at Barnes & Noble and I bought it.
Yeah. Her illustrations are so detailed, and I love that on the panel of each page there's like a little side picture.
Yes. Yeah. That's very much her signature style.
Yep.
Yeah. What's your next book?
Yes. My last book in this pile is Why Christmas Trees Aren't Perfect by Richard H. Schneider, illustrated by Elizabeth J. Miles. This is a perfect wintry book, Christmas aside, because it takes place in a forest covered in snow. I believe it's even set in the Carpathian Mountains, so it's heavy forest, lots of snow. But it's the story of this forest that every year they try to grow as beautiful and as straight, these evergreens, and as perfect as possible so that they can get picked to be the Christmas tree in the Great Hall of the king or the queen's home.
Palace.
Yeah. And so the story focuses on a little tree that's trying to grow big and pretty and perfect, but he takes pity on a rabbit that's being chased by a fox and kind of bends his branches to protect him a little bit and creates a hole for a bird that needs to get out of a snowstorm. So by the time that the people are coming by to look for the tree, he's got holes and patches everywhere. And the other trees tell him, oh, you're not going to be picked. You're not perfect anymore. And so it's the story of what does it actually mean to be quote unquote perfect, but then also how we can physically see how this little tree loved on those around him.
Mm-hmm.
So I have always loved this, and it's impacted me a lot because I remember growing up when we would pick our Christmas trees, I'd want the ones with the holes in it because I'm like, a bird was here or a fox was there or whatever. Because that's
and I always wanted the perfect tree.
Yeah. Yeah.
So much for moms crushing their children's spirits.
Yeah. But this one it's lovely, and it has a really, really good message in it too.
It does, about how sacrificing is going to show in your life.
Yeah.
When you sacrifice unselfishly.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't necessarily make you unbeautiful, even if it makes you imperfect. And is being perfect really what we want to strive for?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Very nice book. The final book we're going to talk about in this show is a very famous book. It was turned into a movie several years ago. I'm not as much a fan of the movie as I am the book. I do enjoy the movie, but the book is just wonderful. And that is The Polar Express by Chris Van Allsburg. He also illustrated the book. This is a Caldecott Medal winner. And all you have to do is look at the illustrations and you understand why. Chris Van Allsburg is just a genius artist. The Polar Express is about a boy who is at the age where he just isn't sure he believes in Santa Claus anymore. And he has an experience on Christmas Eve that kind of changes his whole life. It's kind of a dream. And in the middle of the night, a train rolls down the middle of his street. And he gets on this train. It's called the Polar Express, and it takes him to the North Pole, and he has some experiences there. And when he goes to leave, he is allowed to pick a bell off the harness of Santa's reindeer. And you can only hear the bell ring if you believe. And that's pretty much how the book ends. I don't want to tell the whole story.
Right.
But this is another book that makes me kind of teary. It really addresses the concepts of childlike wonder, and can we actually carry that into adulthood, and the idea of belief and why, what causes us to believe the things we do. So it's just a beautiful Christmas story, completely unrelated to the Nativity, but still very much tied to the concepts of belief and childhood wonder. And Santa Claus.
The Polar Express for me was like Narnia growing up. As much as like I'd want to open a closet and be a Narnia, I wanted the Polar Express to show up in the middle of the night in the snow. And,
so you could climb out your window and go down and get
take
on
me
the
on
train.
an adventure.
I think lots of kids have probably wished that.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
Wow, that's a huge pile of books we just went through.
It is. It is. It was quite rapid fire. I hope you're still with us, listener, because that was a little crazy. To tie up our episode, though, we're going to hold off doing our questions this time. Don't worry. Our next chapter is going to be so much more conversational. We're going to be talking about our goals. So that'll be plenty of time for us to address these questions.
Right. Did we accomplish our reading goals for this year?
Yep.
And are we making any for next year?
Yep.
And if we are, what they are?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So to tie up this chapter, we thought it'd be fun to talk about some book things or reading things that we thought would be fun to do around Christmas time.
That we have never done before. Yeah.
Yeah. The first one that we want to talk about is, I'm totally going to butcher it, and I do apologize, but it's the Jolabokaflod.
Right.
From Iceland.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is a special day in Iceland. I think it's the day after Christmas, where everyone gives book gifts to each other. And I just think that that is such a wonderful idea, that you separate out from Christmas a day that's specifically dedicated just to the reading life and giving books to people. I feel like in our family that is definitely something that we should make a tradition.
Oh, yeah. It would go over very, very well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I just think it's so cool that the Icelandic people do this. We were in Iceland in 2018, so it's been a while, almost 5 years, 4.5 years. And the country is just
breathtaking,
astonishing. Yeah. I've never been anywhere else in the world like Iceland. And I'm just so impressed with the people that they came up with something like this. So cheers to you, Iceland. Thank you for the idea of making a book giving day.
Yeah. I think the other idea, now it's a little too late for me to try it this year, but I think another idea to maybe try next year is a whole book advent calendar.
Yes. Yeah. This is another idea I wish I would have known about when you guys were young, because I just think that would have been so much fun.
Yeah.
You take 24 books or 25, depending on how you do your Advent.
Yeah.
And you wrap the books and you open a book a day and read it. You don't have to own all the books. You can get books from the library. You can go to thrift stores and find books, and they don't have to be Christmas related, but Christmas related books are the best. And then just open a book a day.
Yeah.
And it's okay if you've read them before. Just the fact that they're wrapped and you unwrap them make them special.
It does. It really does. It really does.
Yeah.
And I think whenever kids decide to enter the picture, I think that would be a fabulous one to do with kids, maybe specifically with kids.
Yeah.
I saw a girl online whose husband had gone out and bought books for her to open every single day.
That is
and so
cool.
Ben, I hope you're listening and that you get that clue. Hint.
Julie wants
I'm dropping it hard.
Calendar of books.
But I think that's a fun way to do that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't we all want an advent calendar of books?
Yes.
Well, we've talked about a lot of books today, a lot of books that we love, that we have loved reading and will continue to love reading.
Yes.
And we just want to thank all of our listeners who take the time every 2 weeks to spend some bookish moments with us. We are enjoying this so much, and we hope that you are too.
Yeah.
We won't be doing another episode until after Christmas. And so we hope you have a wonderful Christmas season.
Yes.
That it's as festive or as restful as you need it to be. And if you don't celebrate Christmas, we hope that you have a wonderful holiday season in any way that you celebrate.
Yes, absolutely. That's a wrap, dear listeners. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. You can continue today's conversation at the Booksnug_podcast on Instagram and at the Booksnug podcast on Facebook. All of our episodes can be found wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as at our website, thebooksnugpodcast.buzzsprout.com, where show notes for every episode can also be found. We'd love to hear from you. Email us at thebooksnugpodcast@gmail.com.
As C.S. Lewis, one of our favorite authors, so famously said, "You can never have a cup of tea large enough or a book long enough to suit me. and we wholeheartedly agree.